she announced. Asterisk, I'm engaged to someone else. We've been dating for a few months. Asterisk, still living in my house. I calmly said. Asterisk, congratulations. That night, I had the police escort her out and changed all the locks and security codes. But the story doesn't start there. My name is Mark, I'm 38 years old, and my girlfriend has been together for 4 years and has lived in my house for the past 2.5. This is our house, my house, but at that moment, I felt like a stranger had replaced me. Her name is Emma. That night, she made pasta, opened a bottle of Pinot Noir, and set the table perfectly. I thought maybe she had received good news about her job, but no, this was much more shocking. She put her hand on the table, letting the light catch her diamond ring in a way that made my stomach twist. I have something to tell you, she said, still smiling. Really smiling. I stopped mid-sentence, staring at the sparkling ring on her finger. Are you engaged? I asked, my voice barely steady. Yeah, she replied casually. To Bradley. We've been dating for a few months, and he proposed yesterday. I wanted you to be the first to know. I looked from the ring to her face, back to the ring, back to her. The audacity how she could calmly announce this, while still living under my roof, was almost laughable. I let out a bitter chuckle. So let me be clear, you're engaged to someone else, while still living under my roof. She tilted her head. Yeah. Isn't that interesting? I mean, maybe we should talk about moving. Maybe I could stay for a month or two while Bradley and I find a new place. The words hit me like a punch. I stood up, walked slowly to the cupboard, poured a glass of scotch, and took a sip. My hands weren't shaking anymore. I felt a cold sobriety wash over me. Congratulations, I said, setting the glass down. Really? Her smile faded a little. Aren't you ... upset? I'm done, Emma. Pack your things. You have 2 hours. Her face twisted in disbelief. 2 hours? You're not kidding. I live here. No, Emma, I live here. Past tense. She stammered, but this is illegal. I'm the tenant. You need to give me 30 days' notice. I shook my head. You never paid rent. You never signed a lease. You never contributed to the bills. You're my ex-girlfriend, and I'm asking you to leave my house tonight. Tears began to well up, but not from grief, but from frustration and anger. She pulled out her phone. I'm recording this. This is harassment. I did the same, calling 911. Yes, I need help evicting someone. My ex just announced she was engaged to another man while still living here and refuses to leave. The police arrived less than 20 minutes later. 2 officers, professional but clearly unconvinced, listened to both sides. Emma argued that she had a right to reside. I presented every bill, mortgage statement, and proof of payment in my name. There was no denying Itchy was a guest, nothing more, as she left, carrying 2 suitcases and several bags of trash, live streaming every moment on Instagram to show the world how I was allegedly abusing. I felt a strange sense of peace. The house was mine again, clean, empty, peaceful, for the first time in years. The incident was gone, but even then, the story wasn't over. Her fiancé Bradley soon showed up, confused and defensive. Family members called. Social media exploded. And somehow, I knew this was just the beginning of a 7-week saga that would test my patience. The law, and every remaining restraint I had. Asterisk, by mid-morning, my phone was blowing up. Texts, missed calls, Instagram notifications, I couldn't keep up. And then, Bradley showed up. The man who had turned my life upside down with one sentence. Asterisk, she told me you know about us. Asterisk, I didn't want to talk. I wasn't going to confirm his involvement. No, we don't need to talk, I said. But he insisted. He showed up at my door, hair in a bun, his Prius roaring in the back. He wanted to negotiate, reason, or maybe convince me that I was overreacting. Mark, come on. She needs time, he said, trying to sound reasonable. You can't just throw her out overnight. I shook my head. Bradley, you proposed to my girlfriend when she was living with me. It wasn't a misunderstanding. Now go live with her. His face turned red, and he stammered. I didn't know she was still living there. And yet, I said, she thought it was okay to lie to both of us, manipulate you, and still live rent-free on my money. You get that? Bradley's frustration was palpable. He stared at my belongings, the things I'd bought while she lounged on the sofa, ate my groceries, and slept in my bed. Some of this is hers, he finally said, trying to sound superior. Her clothes, her laptop, her makeup. Everything else is mine. There's a receipt. You can't argue with that, I replied. We stood in tense silence. The air was thick, filled with the indignation of someone who'd been wronged repeatedly. I could feel the adrenaline pumping through my veins, but there was also a strange sense of clarity. I was finally standing up for myself. Things escalated that afternoon. Emma's family started calling, especially her mother, Janet, to demand an explanation. Mark, what's going on? I hear you kicked Emma out. I told them everything. The engagement, announcement, her refusal to leave, the police intervention, my proof of ownership and bills. Janet's voice softened. I didn't know she was still living with you. I thought you were just roommates. That's basically it, I said. For 2.5 years, Janet paused. Her voice was thick with shame. We allowed this to happen. I get it now. Here. Take this, she said, pushing an envelope with $5,000 into my hand. It's not much, but it's a small part of what she took from you. Consider it an apology. I hesitated, then took it. Thank you. But it won't save the mess. Meanwhile, Emma continued her story on social media. Posts painted me as controlling, manipulative, abusive. But I had the receipts. Her love text a few days before the engagement announcement, screenshots of her asking for money, evidence of credit card misuse. I responded publicly with the truth, calmly refuting her story. 2 weeks later, her sister Melissa contacted me, desperate for peace. Mark, can we talk? Without telling her, we did. Melissa proved everything I suspected. Emma had manipulated Bradley, convinced him she was pregnant, and used my home and property as a staging ground for her deception. Bradley's roommate, suspicious of the truth, installed a camera, caught Emma admitting to lying about the pregnancy and laughing at the manipulation. Legal threats followed. A cease and desist order was issued, demanding that I return her property and pay $50,000 for emotional distress and illegal eviction. My lawyer laughed. We filed a counterclaim, 2.5 years of back rent, totaling $48,000. The judge dismissed her claim in less than 5 minutes. Bradley finally called me, embarrassed and desperate. Please, can you help me get her out of my house? He asked. I gave him just one piece of advice. Install cameras, record everything, and call the police at the first sign of false accusations. He smiled wryly, recognizing the irony. By week 7, things had calmed down. Emma had moved back in with her parents, working part-time, still obsessed with social media approval. Bradley had learned the hard way about her manipulations and financial irresponsibility. My house was back to normal. I started dating someone new, Rebecca. She had her own house, her own car, and the same benefits. For the first time in years, my life felt normal. The karma had come, but it had come in strong. The lesson was clear. Boundaries matter, evidence matters, and some people will test every ounce of your patience. Emma, who was once my girlfriend, has become a cautionary tale. A tale of entitlement, manipulation, and ultimate consequences, and me. Every morning, I wake up in my own bed, in my own home, with no drama, no lies. Just the quiet satisfaction of living well, and knowing that sometimes that is the best revenge. By the start of week 3, Emma was going nuclear on social media. She painted me as the villain, the controlling, manipulative ex who kicked her out for falling in love with someone who actually cares about her. She shared screenshots of private conversations selectively, snippets of texts that seemed harmless out of context. She even claimed she had been trying to leave for months, that I wouldn't let her go. The thing is, I had receipts. Literal receipts. Every text, every banking transaction, every interaction that contradicted her story. I posted one calm response. Emma announced she was engaged to another man while living rent-free in my house. Never paid bills, never signed a lease. Here's the evidence. Screenshot after screenshot, the truth emerged. She had asked me for money for student loans 2 weeks prior. She had used my credit card for a spa day with Bradley. I was meticulous. I let facts speak louder than her dramatics. Then came her sister, Melissa, texting me privately. "Mark, can we talk without her knowing? She's driving me insane. She won't get a job. Spends all day on Instagram, talking about her trauma and wedding plans. Bradley is over twice, and she keeps asking him for money. He's freaking out." I realized something important. Emma wasn't just manipulative, she was systematic. She had convinced people around her, even Bradley, that she was the victim while she simultaneously exploited resources. Her friends online started piecing things together too. Comments like, "Wait, she was engaged while living there. I thought you two were broken up," circulated. Karma, slow-moving but deliberate, was finally catching up. By week 5, the legal threats arrived. Emma had found a lawyer or, rather, a desperate ambulance chaser to send a cease and desist, demanding I return her property and pay $50,000 for emotional distress and illegal eviction. My lawyer, of course, laughed at the absurdity. Emma had announced she was engaged while living in my house, rent-free, and now wanted money, we countered. Filing for 2.5 years of back rent at market rate, $48,000. Emma's lawyer dropped her immediately. She attempted to represent herself, filing a 17-page rambling complaint about emotional terrorism and love discrimination. The judge threw it out in under 5 minutes. Even better, the court documents required her address Bradley's house, now public record. By week 6, Bradley himself called, seeking advice. He had tried to handle Emma's antics on his own, but quickly realized the chaos she brought wasn't manageable. I gave him a few simple pieces of advice. Document everything. Record any false accusations, and involve the authorities immediately. First to call usually wins. Meanwhile, Emma's attempts to manipulate everyone around her continued. She convinced Bradley she was pregnant, trying to pressure him into financial commitments. The timeline made no sense. She was actively living with me during the alleged pregnancy. When Bradley's roommates confronted her with footage from security cameras in common areas, she admitted the lie on video. She even tried to claim the recordings were illegal, but common areas in shared housing don't have an expectation of privacy. By week 7, the dust finally settled. Emma moved back in with her parents, working part-time, still posting about self-discovery, claiming to be a survivor of narcissistic abuse. Bradley had been dumped, realizing too late how she manipulated him and spent his money. My life returned to a calm rhythm, clean house, bills paid, no drama. I started dating Rebecca, someone completely different, responsible, independent, contributes equally, and values honesty. We split everything, from rent to groceries. It felt almost surreal how normal it was. No manipulations, no lies, just two people sharing life responsibly. Looking back, the red flags had been there all along. Inconsistent work history. Constant crises preventing contributions. Entitlement so extreme, she thought, living with me while planning a wedding with someone else was acceptable. But the best revenge? Living well, every morning I wake up in my own bed, in my own house, peaceful and undisturbed. Emma is someone else's problem now. Bradley is someone else's problem, and me. I finally feel free. The lesson is clear. Boundaries, evidence, and self-respect matter more than drama or manipulation ever could. The chaos may have lasted 7 weeks, but the peace that followed, priceless. By week 8, the situation had settled enough for me to step back and reflect. Emma, now fully out of my house, had returned to live with her parents. At 33, She was working part-time at a clothing store. Posting motivational quotes about self-discovery online, claiming to be a survivor of narcissistic abuse. She seemed determined to craft a new narrative for herself, one that ignored the chaos she had left in her wake. Bradley, meanwhile, was learning the hard way. His initial infatuation with Emma had blinded him to her manipulative tendencies. Once he realized that she had convinced him to propose while actively living with me and even faked a pregnancy, he was humiliated. Her part-time marketing consultant job at her father's company was not the stable income he thought it was. His financial expectations had crashed along with his trust in her. Family dynamics added another layer of complexity. Emma's mother, Janet, and her father, Robert, reached out multiple times, apologizing for enabling her behavior. They even sent me another $2,000, acknowledging that their inaction had contributed to the chaos. It was a strange sense of closure proof that some people were capable of accountability, even if it came late. Melissa, Emma's sister, became an unexpected ally. She texted updates, filling me in on Emma's antics and the lessons she was supposedly learning. From what she told me, Emma was still struggling with responsibility. She refused to get a full-time job, relied heavily on Bradley for financial support, and was obsessed with Instagram validation. Melissa had installed boundaries around herself, realizing Emma's patterns could be contagious. Bradley reached out to me one more time. "Mark, I need your help. She won't leave my house. She's threatening to accuse me of assault if we try to evict her." I couldn't help but smirk. "Brad, I did that in one night. You should have called the cops immediately. Document everything, install cameras, and let the authorities handle her. First a call usually wins." It was surreal. The man who had proposed to another man's girlfriend now depended on me for advice. He laughed nervously when I reminded him that he had literally walked into a trap of his own making. "She's your responsibility now?" he asked. "Not mine," I said. "You made your choices." Meanwhile, the social media fallout continued to be instructive. Emma had tried to publicly frame me as controlling and abusive. I had calmly documented the facts online: receipts, texts, screenshots of financial support, and proof of her faked pregnancy. The contrast between reality and her narrative became obvious to anyone paying attention. Karma, in a sense, was playing out publicly. 3 months later, life finally returned to a semblance of normalcy. Emma was still engaged, but this time to someone she had met online in another state. They had never met in person, and her new fiancé had also been forced to move back with his parents due to his roommate's frustration with drama. Mutual friends reported that she posted motivational quotes, still obsessed with creating a persona of growth and resilience, but largely disconnected from reality. My house was peaceful. Bills were lower, stress was gone, and the drama that had consumed so much of my life was finally resolved. I started dating Rebecca, a woman with her own house, car, and responsibilities. She contributed equally to our life together, making the relationship feel fair and balanced, something I had not experienced in years. The lessons were clear. Boundaries are essential, evidence is powerful, and living well is the ultimate revenge. Drama, manipulation, and deceit cannot compete with clarity, calm, and the protection of one's own life and resources. Looking back, the red flags had been everywhere. Emma hadn't worked steadily in 2 years, always had an excuse for not contributing, and had big dreams with no actual plans. Her sense of entitlement was astronomical. She thought she could live with me while planning a wedding with another man. But reality, slow and deliberate, caught up with her. In the end, the peace I regained was priceless. Every morning, I wake up in my own bed, in my own house, with no one else's chaos intruding on my life. Emma, Bradley, and the rest are now someone else's problem. I finally understand. Living well, with integrity and boundaries, is the most satisfying revenge of all. Asterisk. By week 10, the dust had settled, but the ripple effects of Emma's actions were still visible. Her parents, Janet and Robert, were finally beginning to truly understand what had happened. They contacted me one last time, not to blame or cause trouble, but to explain. They admitted that they had tolerated Emma's manipulative behavior for too long and shared that they were now in therapy to prevent similar mistakes from happening again. Their admission and small, symbolic compensation felt like real closure. Now living with her parents, Emma has turned her focus to building a personal growth narrative online. She posted about discovering herself and overcoming the pain of being abused by a narcissist. But those who knew the truth could see a stark contrast. She still refused to work full-time, relied on her family and Bradley for money, and spent hours on social media cultivating a carefully crafted image. Her online image was one thing. Her real life was another. Brandon, humbled by his own misjudgment, learned some hard lessons. He realized Emma's manipulations were intentional and his hasty proposal was a huge mistake. He tried to set boundaries, and after facing reality, he distanced himself from her toxic behavior. Bradley began rebuilding his life, focusing on stability and moving away from the patterns that had held him captive. Interestingly, Emma's sister, Melissa, became an unexpected ally throughout this process. She gave me insights into Emma's behavior that even I hadn't fully understood. Emma's obsession with validation, avoidance of responsibility, and tendency to manipulate were patterns she'd been repeating for years. Melissa now sets firm boundaries, refuses to be drawn into further trouble, and even occasionally updates me on Emma's efforts to navigate her life post-eviction. An unexpected twist comes when Emma gets engaged again, this time to someone she met online in another state. They've never met in person, and even her new fiancé's roommate kicked him out for bringing trouble into their shared space. The cycle seems destined to repeat itself, but this time from afar. Emma's Instagram continued to feature inspirational quotes, but friends noticed that her living situation was far from the inspiring life she often portrayed. Meanwhile, my life was back to normal. The house was peaceful, the bills were paid, and the stress of trivial matters was gone. Rebecca, my new partner, shared responsibilities equally, financially, emotionally, and family. For the first time in years, life felt fair, balanced, and manageable. There was no manipulation, no lies, just cooperation. Looking back on the whole ordeal, I see the lessons. Emma's sense of entitlement, her delusional belief that she could live with me while planning a wedding with another man, and her manipulation were all warning signs. Boundaries, paperwork, and calmly enforcing personal space protected me from long-term consequences. The ultimate victory isn't about legal battles or social media vindication, it's about regaining peace. Waking up every morning in my own home, living on my own terms, feeling safe and respected is priceless. Emma, Bradley, and the rest are no longer my problem. This experience reinforced a simple truth. The best way to deal with manipulation and drama is to act calmly, clearly, and intentionally. Protect your life, set boundaries, and prioritize your happiness. Living well is the ultimate revenge, and, after all, I finally understand what that really means.